Great, welcome to the Mira Next Gen System Overview. In this presentation, we'll talk about some of the differences between the new system and the old system, as well as review some of the procedures for emergency and failure modes. First, we'll start with an introduction to radio systems in general. This is simplex, and this is how most people think about how radios operate. One frequency is used, the radios talk directly to each other, and it has limited range because the radios need line of sight to each other. This is how certain channels work on the Mira radios, such as the law enforcement car-to-car channels, fire conventional 13 and 14, and the high band channels, and the public works traffic flagging channels. However, this is not how the Mira system works for normal operations on a daily basis. Next is a repeater system, which utilizes mountaintop radio towers, which listen for mobile and portable radio transmissions, and then rebroadcast them out to all units in the coverage area. This provides much greater range compared to simplex, and two frequencies are used. The radios talk to the repeater on the input frequency, and the repeater rebroadcasts the traffic on the output frequency. This means that all radio traffic goes through the repeater, and the mobile and portable radios are listening to the repeater output frequency. Mira is a repeated radio system. What does this mean for you? Dispatchers don't ask field units to relay for each other. This is a common mistake that we see. You'll have a unit that's in a fringe area or radio dead zone. You're trying to get out, but the transmission is broken or digital. And then the dispatcher will come on and say, is there a unit nearby that can relay for that unit? Every unit in the field is hearing exactly the same audio that you are. All of the mobiles and portables are listening to the repeater output frequency, which is broadcasting the same audio that the dispatcher is hearing. So you could have another unit 50 feet away, and they're going to hear exactly the same thing that the dispatcher is hearing. Field units. If you're not getting through, that means you're not reaching the repeater. If you're using your portable radio, try using your mobile. Your mobile transmits at a higher power and has a better antenna than your portable. If that's not an option, move to a more elevated location or hold your portable in a more elevated position, also known as the Statue of Liberty technique. Some of the volunteer fire departments like Stinson and Mirror Beach out on the coast will be used to setting up a radio relay, positioning a vehicle within range of the system, and then using a simplex channel to communicate with units at the scene, which may be out of range. Usually, if you're not able to get out on your portable, your mobile will work, but if all else fails, you may have to resort to alternative options such as cell phones or MDTs. Next is trunking systems, and Mira is also a trunked radio system. Trunked radio systems are repeater systems with one difference. Instead of users being divided into different channels, each with a dedicated frequency, users are divided into different talk groups. The system has a pool of frequencies available. Your radio is constantly connected to the system, telling it which talk group you're affiliated with. And each time you transmit, the system assigns a frequency to use and tells all other radios on your talk group to go to that frequency. This means that conversations will jump around between all of the frequencies in the pool, depending on which one happens to be assigned each time someone transmits. The purpose of this is just more efficient use of limited frequencies. In a conventional radio system, you might have one repeater for a busy channel like SO primary that's getting constant use, and another repeater for a public works or tactical channel that sits idle for hours or days without being used. With trunked radio systems, those frequencies are assigned as needed, eliminating wasteful dead air time. Here's a diagram of how trunked radio systems work, with all the field users on the left, and transmissions can take any number of different talk paths back to the dispatcher. The next-gen Mira system is a 700 megahertz P25 phase 2 trunked radio system. What's going to be different for us? Essentially nothing. The frequency band is changing from 480 megahertz to 700 megahertz. The technology is changing from Motorola Smart Zone to Project 25. And phase 2 just means that more conversations can occur on the same number of frequencies. All of these are transparent to the end user, and your radio will work almost identically to the current Mira system. In this presentation, we'll cover normal operations, as well as various emergency and failure modes, what they mean, and what to do when you encounter them. This is a diagram of the repeater sites on the next-gen Mira system. There's an east zone that covers the 101 corridor and most of the urban areas of the county, and a west zone that covers West Marin and the coast. For normal operations, to transmit, press the push to talk button and wait for the 3-chirp talk permit tone. This indicates that the system has assigned a voice frequency and is ready for traffic. When you are finished talking, release the push to talk button. A long bonk sound indicates that you cannot transmit. You're either trying to talk over someone else or you're out of range of the system. If you were trying to talk over someone else, wait for the person to finish and try again. If you're out of range of the system, as we discussed before, try your mobile radio or move to a more elevated location. A series of short bonk tones indicates that all of the system frequencies are busy. This is extremely rare. It's an uncommon occurrence with the current Mira system, and it will be even more rare with the next-gen system because it will have more frequencies. Once you receive that series of short bonk tones, you're automatically placed in line for the next available frequency. The system will call you back with the 3-chirp talk permit tone. As soon as you hear that talk permit tone, go ahead and press the push to talk button and begin transmitting. You're probably familiar with the orange emergency button. Pressing that orange button does several things. First, your radio will switch to the designated emergency talk group. For law radios, that will be your agency's channel 3, for example, SO3 or San Rafael Police 3. Fire radios will switch to the FD emergency talk group. The dispatcher will receive a visual and audible alert, and the volume for the emergency talk group will automatically be turned up to maximum on the dispatcher's end. That's why dispatchers get annoyed when you hit the emergency button by accident. You also have priority over other system users when in emergency mode. If you're trying to transmit and someone else is talking and you're getting that bonk tone, if you have emergency traffic and you need to talk over that person, hit your emergency button and you'll be able to get through to dispatch. The emergency button can also be used if you're unable to speak. The dispatcher can see what radio the emergency activation came from, so it will alert them that you have a problem even if you're unable to tell them what the emergency is. After an emergency button activation, the emergency has to be cleared from the dispatch end and the field user end. If you accidentally hit your emergency button, let dispatch know that it was an accident. The dispatcher will acknowledge the emergency activation on their end, and then to clear the emergency on your end, press and hold the emergency button for several seconds until you hear a long tone indicating that the activation has been cleared. Next, we'll cover failure modes. There are two main failure modes in a P25 trunked radio system, failsoft and site trunking. The procedure for either failure mode is the same. Make sure that you go to your agency's home talk group. That's the most important thing. For law enforcement, this will be your agency's primary talk group. For fire, this will be your primary control talk group, for example, Golf 2, Echo 2, or Delta 2. The first failure mode we'll talk about is failsoft. This means that the site controller has failed and the site no longer has the ability to assign voice frequencies from the pool as users transmit. In that situation, each frequency turns into a conventional non-trunked repeater. Your radio will automatically switch to its designated failsoft frequency, and you'll hear a tone every 10 seconds, and the display will show failsoft. The important thing to know here is that you may hear other agencies on your frequency. As we discussed before, there are a limited number of frequencies on the system, so some frequencies are going to be shared. Every radio has a pre-designated failsoft frequency, so don't be surprised if the system goes into failsoft mode and all of a sudden you're hearing other law enforcement agencies or fire users on the same channel. That just means they've been assigned the same failsoft frequency as you. To recap, the most important thing here is to go to your home talk group. Your pre-designated failsoft frequency is based on which talk group you have selected. So make sure that you're on your primary law dispatch talk group or your primary fire control talk group. The other main failure mode is site trunking. This means that the zone controller has failed, and the two zones, the east zone along the 101 corridor and the west zone for West Marin, are no longer connected. Each zone continues operating independently, but the radios cannot communicate between the zones. You'll hear a tone every 10 seconds, and the display will show site trunking. Agencies along the 101 corridor in the East Zone will likely be unaffected. The system will essentially continue to operate as normal for them. This will really only be a problem for the West Marin agencies, such as the Sheriff's Office, County Fire, and the volunteer fire departments in West Marin. Those agencies may not be able to communicate with their dispatcher, since most of the dispatch centers are located in the eastern portion of the county. The agencies in West Marin will still be able to communicate with other users in West Marin. So if you're one of the sheriff units out on the coast or one of the coastal fire departments, you'll still have communication with other users along the coast. But since the West Zone is unable to talk back to the East Zone, you may lose contact with your dispatch. Both of these failure modes are extremely rare, but it's important to know what to do when they occur. This concludes the Mira NextGen system overview. If you have any questions, refer to the quick reference card provided with your radio, the user handbook available on the training portal on the Mira website, your agency's subject matter expert, or the Mira NextGen Training Committee. Thanks.